He was supposed to be a part of the next generation of great scoring guards in the NBA, a player who can carry the torch for the Golden State Warriors after the dynasty core started aging. For a while, it looked like everything was going exactly according to plan. The flashes were there, the confidence was undeniable, and the highlight plays were building a reputation fast. But just as quickly as the rise came, the fall followed. And in the NBA, nothing disappears faster than momentum when trust is gone. Jordan Poole entered the league as a late first-round pick. Not a sure thing, not a franchise savior, just a kid with scoring ability and a lot to prove. Early on, his NBA career didn't look special. He struggled with efficiency, made bad decisions, and looked like he was trying to do too much too soon. There were games where he barely saw the floor, and when he did, it was clear he wasn't fully ready for the speed and physicality of the league. Most players in his position quietly fade into the background or get labeled as a draft miss. But something about Poole kept him in the conversation. Coaches saw confidence, teammates saw work ethic, and slowly, over time, that raw confidence started turning into real production. The turning point came during his time in the development system and then back with the Golden State Warriors rotation. He started playing more within the system. Instead of forcing everything, he began learning how to use momentum, spacing, and timing the way Golden State guards were expected to. The Warriors, built around ball movement and shooting, were one of the best environments possible for a guard trying to find his identity. He didn't have to be perfect. He just had to be aggressive at the right times. Then the breakthrough came. Poole started hitting shots consistently. Deep threes, quick pull-ups, drives to the rims where he finished through contact. His confidence grew game by game. The coaching staff trusted him more, and eventually, he wasn't just playing in garbage time or filling gaps. He was closing games. That's when people around the league started paying attention. It wasn't just flashes anymore. It was production. During the stretch, Poole looked like one of the best young guards in the league. He had nights where he looked unstoppable offensively, creating shots off the dribble like a veteran. He could handle the ball, run pick and roll, and most importantly, he wasn't afraid of the moment. In Golden State's system, that fearlessness mattered. When defenses collapsed on Steph Curry, Poole could punish them. When Klay Thompson was off rhythm, Poole could carry scoring stretches. He became a release value for the Golden State Warriors offense, and in many ways, he felt like the natural successor to their offensive identity. That rise reached its peak during the championship run. Poole wasn't just contributing, he was a big major part of the rotation. In big playoff moments, he delivered. There were games where he provided instant offense off the bench, changing momentum with one or two possessions. His quick release and deep range made him dangerous in a few bench players could match. For a moment, it looked like Golden State had pulled off another miracle story development, turning a late pick into a future star. Then came the contract. The Warriors rewarded him with a massive extension, signaling that they believed he was a part of their long-term future. Around the league, that was seen as a turning point. He wasn't just a young star or a young player anymore. He was a core piece. The pressure shifted instantly. Expectations rose. And in the NBA, that's when things start to change. Because once you get paid like a star, you're no longer judged like a role player. Every mistake becomes louder. Every bad shot becomes a question. Every defensive lapse becomes a talking point. And for Poole, who had built his game on confidence and aggression, that shift was not easy. At the same time, things inside the Warriors organization started to get complicated. The chemistry that had defined their dynasty was being tested. Younger players wanted bigger roles. Veterans still wanted control, and in the middle of it all was Jordan Poole, trying to carve out his place in a system that was already built around established stars. The turning point that most people remember, and that many believe changed everything for him and Golden State, was the practice involving Draymond Green. It wasn't just a small disagreement, it became a major internal fracture that leaked into the public eye. Suddenly, Poole wasn't just a rising star, he was part of a controversy that questioned the stability of the locker room. Even though teams try to move on from internal issues, that kind of moment doesn't just disappear. It lingers in relationships, in trust, and in how players interact on and off the court. After that, people started watching Poole differently. Not just his performance, but his behavior, his body language, his decision making. Every mistake felt magnified, and on the court, things started to become inconsistent. Some nights he still looked explosive, scoring in bunches and hitting tough shots. Other nights, his efficiency dropped and turnovers piled up. The consistency that separates good players from great ones started to slip. The Warriors, a team built on harmony and precision, began to look like they were trying to balance too many timelines at once. Veteran championship players were still trying to win now, while younger players like Poole were trying to grow into larger roles. That tension is difficult for any franchise to manage. Eventually, decisions have to be made. Defenses also adjusted. In Golden State, he often benefited from spacing created by all-time shooters. In his situation, defenses keyed in on him more directly. He wasn't the third or fourth option anymore. He was one of the main focuses. That shift is one of the hardest transitions in NBA. Many players can thrive as a secondary scorer, but struggle when asked to carry more responsibly. As the season went on, the narrative around Poole began to change. Instead of being the rising star, he became the player that underperformed. Analysts questioned his shot selection. Fans debated whether he could be a winning player in a leading role. Social media amplified every mistake, and in today's NBA, perception can change as fast as performance. Still, there were moments that reminded everyone why he'd been hyped up in the first place. Games where he caught fire and looked unstoppable. Deep threes in rhythm. Quick bursts of scoring that flipped momentum instantly. In those moments, you could still see the same player who once looked like a future cornerstone. But the problem was consistency. Great players don't just have highs, they avoid the deep lows that follow. Over time, the conversation shifted again. It wasn't about potential anymore. It was about identity. Was he a franchise cornerstone? A high-level sixth man? A scoring specialist who needed structure around him? The league tends to categorize players quickly, and once that label sticks, it's hard to escape it. For Poole, the challenge became redefining his role. Instead of trying to be everything at once, the focus shifted towards becoming more efficient, more disciplined, and more controlled with his shot selection. Coaches emphasized decision-making, pacing, and reading defenses instead of forcing offense. The talent was never the question. It was how to harness it within a winning structure. At the same time, the mental side of the game became just as important as the physical. Confidence is both a strength and a risk for players like him. When shots are falling, everything looks unstoppable. When they're not, frustration can take over. Learning how to stay steady through both is what separates long-term contributors from players who bounce around the league. His story also became a reflection of how quickly the NBA changes. One season, you're a champion, contributing to a dynasty. The next, you're adjusting to a new team trying to prove your value all over again. There is very little long-term stability unless you are a top-tier superstar. Everyone else is consistently being evaluated, upgraded, or replaced. What makes his journey so interesting is that it's still ongoing. Unlike true tales that end in complete collapses, Poole is still in the middle of his story. Players evolve, roles change. Sometimes situations unlock versions of a player that weren't visible before. The league has seen many careers shift at years after people thought they were defined. For now, his legacy sits in a strange place. He has already reached the highest level of a team's success by winning a championship. He has already signed a major contract that reflects belief in his talent. He has already experienced both the highs and the harshest criticism of an NBA life. But he is still young enough that the next chapter could redefine everything again. The rise showed what he could become when everything aligned: confidence, system, and opportunity working together. The fall showed how quickly things can change when structure shifts and expectations increase. And somewhere between those two extremes is the reality of his career, still being written, still being judged, still being adjusted with every game. In the NBA, the difference between a rising star and a fallen one is often not talent, it's timing, environment, and fit. Jordan Poole experienced all of that at once, and whether his story ultimately becomes a comeback narrative or a rise and fall tale depends on what comes next, not what's already been written. Let me know what other NBA players or NBA teams you guys want to hear me talk about next, and I'll see you guys in the next video.